Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. So it is that time of day again. We are able to pull a mystery card and then we're going to draft a deck around that card. But before we pull the card, we have a couple of cool updates about the channel. We started a Discord channel. If you want to be able to connect with me, other members that enjoy my content, if you want to have a place to suggest different content such as deck builds, updates to videos, different content types, the Discord is going to be the place to do it, where we're going to be able to have the easiest back and forth and have a discussion around it. So if you want to stay connected to me and the channel, check out the Discord in the link down below. And then with that, we have another cool update to the channel. We now have access to YouTube memberships. So if you want to help support me, support these videos, and get some additional perks in the meantime, you can purchase a membership to the channel that will give you access to those different perks depending on the membership level that you choose. The entry level being $2.99, you get access to some emojis and an icon next to your name to let everyone know that you support the channel. Now, this is by no means necessary. I do appreciate you just coming and watching the videos, being subscribed to the channel. That is more than enough. But if you feel like you want to check the membership options out, there is a join button down below next to the subscribe button. By clicking that, you'll be able to look at the different membership levels and decide if one of them interests you. Now, with that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and pull our mystery card for today. Ooh, so we get Electro. So Electro being one of the few ramp tools in the game currently, and something I've kind of looked forward to. I think there's some pretty cool things you can do with him. Now, Electro, he has the on reveal ability +1 max energy. So if you play this in Camartage, you get +2 max energy. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Additionally, you get the ongoing ability. You can only play one card at a time. And so this is one of the few cards that has both an on reveal and an ongoing ability. And I think there are some cool ways to play him and get some upside. One of the cooler methods that come to mind is a lockjaw. So you could play him, you could get the on reveal ability, but then you send him back into your deck so you don't have the negative downside of that ongoing ability on your board. You could also drop him into like a murder world where the cards are going to get destroyed at the end of turn 3. You could drop him in there on turn 3, you get the +1 max energy upside, but you don't get the ongoing downside. So I think a lot of cool ways to make this work, but we're going to go ahead and jump into the deck build and we will be right back. All right, so we did end up drafting way too many decks. You're not going to be able to tell it from the video standpoint, but there has been a pretty large time gap. There's been about 4 hours of experimentation in between when we pulled Electro and now. This deck list took a lot of experimentation to kind of find and figure out and fine tune, a lot more so than a normal standard deck list. On a normal standard deck list, if you have one of your combo pieces and it just doesn't fit well, it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to break the entire deck. But with this one, and with wanting to, ramp up, drop higher power cards, ramp up, lock down a lane, it needs to feel either really solid or you have to get really lucky with your draws. And I didn't want to feature a video where we're getting lucky with our draw chances. And so we had to continue to go back to the drawing board time and time again. But the end result is this deck, which I have called Lock and Awe. It's a play on Shock and Awe for Electro, but because we are wanting to lock down a lane, we've called it Lock and Awe. So starting off, let's go through some of the key cards in this deck. Of course, our new card, Electro. So what we're wanting to do with this card on turn 3, we're wanting to utilize this card so that on turn 4, we have 5 energy. That is going to allow us to either drop an early Iron Man or an early Professor X to lock down a lane. And to be able to reliably lock down a lane with Professor X, we need to have a pretty decent early game. So we do that in this deck with a couple of things. We have the Hood, that's going to generate a 1 cost 6 power token that we can use in the lane that we're planning on locking down to help swing that power level in our favor. We also have Sunspot. Sunspot's really good for a lane that is going to be locked down, because if you don't quite have the power level to win that lane or that location, you can pass some energy and it's going to be able to buff up over time to be able to get to the point where you will win that lane. But how do we overcome the ongoing ability of Electro being you can only play 1 card a turn? Ideally, we do that either by just accepting it. It's at that point late game, it's turn 5 and 6. We can drop an Iron Man and an Onslaught, a Crossbones and Onslaught, a Crossbones, a Chavez. We can play to curve if we need to, but more ideally, we can do a Viper, which is going to send the Electro into their lane. But what I found with this kind of cheeky combo was that it felt like a pretty big waste to drop Electro on turn 3, and then turn 4 you waste your extra mana, your extra energy, by just playing one card, being Viper, to send Electro their way. Yes, they can only drop one card on both turn 5 and 6. A lot of decks besides Swarm or Zoo really only drop a few cards on those turns anyways. So this part of the combo felt clunky, and I experimented with keeping it in, taking it out. What I settled on was adding in a Psylocke. So Psylocke is going to be able to be dropped on turn 3, and this is going to give us, one, another ramp opportunity to drop our Professor X on turn 4 as our kind of priority combo, but it's also going to give us some flexibility in being able to drop Psylocke on turn 3. On turn 4, we will have 5 energy. We can use both Electro and Viper in the same turn. That way we never have that downside on turn 4 of only being able to drop that one card. So this adds a lot of consistency to this combo, whereas before we had to rely on drawing both Viper and Electro, or Electro and Professor X. Now we have that additional ramp tool. If we draw a subset of those cards, then we can make a combo piece work within it. The rest of the cards here are designed to either limit what the opponent can do, or push out power early or high power late. So we have Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is going to be able to get moved into Sanctum Sanctorum, locked down lanes, flooded lanes. He's going to add some versatility to push a tiny bit of power around the board where needed. Then we of course have Viper, that a Viper on reveal is going to send one of the cards in our lane to the opponent's side of the board. We have Cosmo, and Cosmo I feel like is kind of sneaky here. Cosmo ongoing on reveal abilities won't happen at this location. So what this does is takes away the guesswork of if we're going to be able to drop our Iron Man, our Onslaught, are they going to get Enchantress? Are they going to get rogued where it's going to be stolen? Are we going to have to worry about something like that? Cosmo makes those cards no longer function in that lane, so then we can easily or restfully drop our Iron Man and our Onslaught to then have the quadrupled power level to come up to something like 36 power. So it takes away the counterplays that the opponent can do in that situation so that we can rely on that power level going into the end of the game. And then we have Crossbones. So we want to be winning a lane early prior to locking it down with Professor X. So if we do it come up into turn 5 naturally, we want to be able to be fairly competitive in whatever lane it is that we're locking down, or be competitive in a second lane to then be able to drop Iron Man and Onslaught on turn 5 and 6 and no longer worry about that initial lane. And then rounding out the deck list, we have Chavez. Chavez it's hit and miss. So it evens out our draws through the rest of the game. But sometimes on turn 6, you're really hoping to draw into Onslaught, and you're going to draw Chavez instead. So Chavez can win us some games, but it can also create some dead draws. So it just depends on how confident you are feeling in your draws for that game. But that is the general idea of this deck list. Whenever I first made these last updates to it, I ended up winning 5 in a row, and then I ended up going about 60 or 70% after that for the next 5 games. So I am going to go ahead and jump into the gameplay. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. This one was a lot more work than normal, but I think it is fairly satisfying. I haven't seen any working Electro decks because it's fairly inconsistent. It's hard to use reliably, but I think this one does a pretty decent job. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and drop our Hood into Hala. So then we're gonna intentionally lose this location. And they do destroy our Chavez, which is okay. We don't necessarily rely on Chavez. We just use it as a means to kind of even out our draws. And so Kamar Taj being a pretty decent location for us, in that if we draw into Electro, it's going to give us +2 energy. If we drop our Psylocke, that's similar, same thing. So if we drew into just the perfect hand, we'd have Psylocke, and then we could drop Electro and Viper that following turn to send both Psylocke and Electro into their lanes, and we'd have the upside of having the additional mana or energy, which is just not how it falls this time, unfortunately. So we are just going to play our demon this turn. We do get an extra energy. So what do we draw into here? So Onslaught, so nothing great. And depending on what kind of deck we think they're playing, we could do a Cosmo here, which would stop the double on reveal abilities, but is that the play line we want to go with? We could also go with a Crossbones here to extend this lead, knowing that on 5 and 6 we're going to be able to drop 36 power between the two plays. And if we don't, I think we go with the Cosmo here. The Cosmo will allow us to do a turn 4 Crossbones, unless they drop resources here, and then we could drop Crossbones here and follow it up with our Iron Man Onslaught on turn 5 and 6 into the Tinkerer's Workshop. And so they do drop energy or resources here. And so they drop a Sandman. So that's okay for us. We operate under the assumption that we're only going to be able to play one card each turn for the majority of the game. So I think what we do is we drop our Crossbones here. That's going to extend the lead in Tinkerer's Workshop just a bit. We're going to lose our negative downside of the Hood in Hala after this turn. And then we can focus on where we need to put the remainder of our resources. So they do go ahead and try to push their upside in Lady Sif in Hala. They discard a Doctor Doom. So we know that they're going to be able to spread some power out across the board. Luckily, it's not going to be 2 times by Kamar Taj, because we do have Cosmo in place. We have an 11-point lead here. I think that is enough to keep us. I think it's enough to win us that lane, even if they do a Doctor Doom that pushes cards over or they resummon it here. I think it's enough. So we're going to go ahead and drop our Iron Man. I'm fairly confident that we win this one, because I would anticipate that they resummon their Doctor Doom here, which then pushes a Doombot and a Doombot, but that's not going to be enough to win this location. Unless they do the resummon this turn, and then the Doombot brings them up to 8, and then they try to win this lane afterwards, which is a potential. But doing a Professor X here would be risky as well. I think maybe we do... Nope. I was thinking maybe we do a Professor X here to lock down this lane. But then we wouldn't have any way to push big or major power into Kamar Taj for that last turn. So the safest play is to drop our Iron Man and then let them do their Ghost Rider into the Doctor Doom, which will resummon cards here and here. And then we just have to hope. We have to have hope. So if they have a high power card, which I anticipate that they do, they would anticipate that we drop a big resource here. What if we go with this, that pushes this to 20? When they drop a Chavez or whatever else they drop, it would make this 18, and it would not be enough to win the game, or win the lane or the game. Because seeing this, if I could only drop one card, I am not going to play in Kamar Taj, knowing that whatever they drop there is going to be massive. Is it a good play line? It's a read, and we're going off of our gut and what we would do in their situation, so let's go ahead and lock it in. So they had done the retreat later. They were just waiting for us to lock in before it retreated for them. I think that gave us the best odds of winning in that situation, though. Guys, it's happening. We have the dream opener. So we're going to be able to drop Psylocke on turn 3, which would allow us to drop a Professor X on turn 4 if we wanted to. On turn 5, we could always do the Viper Electro Unison, depending on how we see fit here. And so I think we pass here as well. The Onslaught Citadel is going to be pretty key for us a little bit later down the line. So on turn 6, cards can't be played here. So that lets us know if we lock it down early, then we're okay. And then after turn 3, a random card is going to be added here. So I think we play into the vault for this turn. And we're also going to be able to, we can drop the Hood somewhere. We're going to drop it into X Mansion. That'll give us a token next turn, which that'll give us some options. So we can either lock down a lane depending on where they play, or we can do the Electro Viper combo followed by the Professor X that following turn. And so they drop a Nakia, so all cards in their hand are going to be buffed. So it may be more worthwhile to do the Electro Viper combo here. Ooh, and they have a Devil Dino that they pulled, and we pulled an Agent 13. Like that is like an awful spread. Just absolutely awful. So I anticipate that they stop dropping resources here because that is a very heavy lead. So I think what we need to do here is drop our Electro and our Viper in the same turn. That's going to allow us to start dropping some big resources in the next few turns. We just have to find a way. We just have to find a way to win off of those. And we know that cards aren't going to be able to be played into the vault on turn 6. So maybe we play off of that. We just have to kind of see what it looks like. And so they are running a version of a Zoo deck. And so we are going to send them Electro. they may very well retreat here, because the Khazar tells me that they're wanting to drop a lot of 1 power cards, and they're not gonna be able to do that anymore. So we can go 6 power, we can go 3 more power, and then we could even do the Nightcrawler here. That way, depending on what they drop and where, we have the option to move it out into our Iron Man lane if we need some additional power there. If not, then we're going to have 7 power, so we can do both the Cloak and Iron Man into Onslaught Citadel on turn 6. So I think we have a really, really good shot here. So they drop an Angela, so they're just going with the good old tactic of locking down Onslaught Citadel. So we have this one very heavily. We draw into our Chavez, which is not necessarily what we want to play on turn 6, but it does work to help even out our draws through the rest of the game. And so now we're going to be able to drop both 4 power and our Iron Man. So this is going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 power that's going to be quadrupled. If they have an Iron Man here, then we lose, which feels pretty awful. If they have an Iron Man in their zoo deck, we lose. And they might. Some zoo decks run an Iron Man. So is there a way that we can get up over 10 power here? So if we drop 4 and this, that becomes 8. And that takes up our only 2 spaces there. So I think this is our only chance. But I do think they drop an Iron Man. I'm going to go ahead and tell... Ooh, no, they don't. Okay. And so I think we read into it just a little bit too much. Our Iron Man is, of course, because it's Onslaught Citadel, just going to go absolutely massive, which is really the only reason we were able to win this lane and lock down this game. Just very, very fortunate, because they had some really strong or very large cards in an 11 power Ant-Man because of their Khazar double buff. The Angela, which gets the 1 trigger. Just a really hard deck to kind of counter or play against. We were just very fortunate that we had the ongoing effects being doubled in Onslaught Citadel. Next up, we have the Batfather. So in our hand, we have our Viper, we have Iron Man, Professor X. We don't have the tools, either of the 2 tools that we have to ramp into Professor X just yet. But being that we have 2 options, it allows us a lot more consistency in drawing those. But we do draw into Elysium as the middle location. I think we're going to drop our Psylocke into this left lane. Hoping that if they drop resources, it's into Elysium. I almost want to drop Psylocke into the unknown location, but then if it turns out to be Space Throne, that just feels really, really bad. So they drop a Morbius. So they're going to be a discard style deck. And so we now have 4 energy. Batfather, I am so sorry for what I am about to do to you. We are going to go ahead and snap, because this is a phenomenal playline. We have our Electro. We have our Electro and our Viper, which I think I want to send to them over in Atlantis, because I anticipate that they drop resources into Elysium. And so that's going to give us the additional power of Electro. It's going to stop them from doing a lot of discarding, which they swarmed the board on turn 2 or on turn 3. Wow. Not very often that they do that. So did they have like the... Wow. And so they do have a swarm deck. And so they were going off the... They have a massive swarm army now. So they have so many swarm cards in their hand. They had 5 swarm cards. So now they have only 1 real card in their hand. So very fortunate for us. The Morbius does get pretty large here. I think we go and try to compete for the Ruins. And then, of course, we compete for Atlantis as well. It just comes down to, do we think they're going to drop resources here this turn or not? Either way, they can only drop 1 card a turn. So we really, really limit what they're able to do here. I think for this turn, we go ahead and drop our Iron Man here. We don't have the downside of only being able to do 1 card a turn, but I think this is where it makes the most sense. Because if we tried to drop a Professor X into Atlantis, right now we'd lose the 5 power buff, and it just wouldn't end up being great for us. So do we do something like this? Depending on what they drew into, if it is no more than 3 power, this would leave us at 8. And so then if they drop the 3 power, they lose their 5 power buff. So it'd have to be no less than 6 power. I think this is the play line we want to go with. Knowing that next turn we can do our onslaught into ruins, we want to keep that a little bit of a secret. So I think we do utilize this to try and lock down this lane. If they drop anything other than their swarm, maybe they have a chance here. But I think this gives us a good opportunity. So they don't drop resources into Atlantis, so that's great. And for some reason they drop a Moon Girl, which duplicates their cards, but they're not going to be able to operate off of that. And so let's say they draw into an Apocalypse here. They haven't discarded the Apocalypse. The most that they could have would be 10 power in a Chavez. And so that is going to put them at 23. This is going to put us at 6, 12, 24. And then they have an Okoye. Ooh, so that doesn't feel great. I wish we would have had our Psylocke here or some additional power, because I anticipate an 11 power Chavez. I think we lose this one. I think we actually lose this one. So this is going to be 6, 12, and then double that's 24. 11 power here would put them at 24. They win this one by 16. We only win this one by 1. So we're going to lose this one, but we're going to let it play out. Does this deck run a Chavez? So they drop an Apocalypse. No way. Our Onslaught is going to be enough. You are enough, Onslaught. You're enough. You're enough for me. You're enough for this game. You did the work that you needed to do, and you put in the time. So the reason I stayed, I very heavily debated retreating. The reason I stayed is a discard Apocalypse type deck typically doesn't run a Chavez. It's really counterproductive in the fact that they want to drop their Apocalypse on turn 6 for the majority of games. So I leaned in, I took a little bit of a risk, and luckily this time it paid off. So next up we have Golem again. So Golem we played against in a video a couple of, I don't remember, it was within the last couple of days. So they have Iceman. What does their Iceman hit? Unfortunately, it hits our Psylocke. Actually, we would have dropped Psylocke on turn 3 anyways, so I don't know that it's that much of an issue. And so I think what we go with here is that we just drop our Nightcrawler. It doesn't matter where we drop our Nightcrawler necessarily. We drop our Nightcrawler. Next turn, we will drop our Psylocke. That's going to give us 5 power on turn, 5 energy on turn 4. We can use that to play both Electro and Viper and send that card into their lane, limiting them to 1 play per turn. And so I think depending on what they drop here, if it's another 1 cost card, then I think we snap. Ooh, that is unfortunate. So they drop a Wave, which really counteracts our Psylocke combo here, because now we're only going to be able to drop 1 card, and so the ramp didn't really do us much good. So I think we go ahead, and since we drew into our Onslaught, we drop that into Wakanda. That's going to be our location where we're going to try to push as much power as possible with powerful ongoing effects like our Iron Man, our Onslaught, that sort of thing. So they dropped a Sarah. It's now turn 5, and we can do a couple of things. We can move this out, and we could do an Electro, a Viper, which allows them to only drop 1 card per turn. Or we could try to lock this lane down with our Professor X. I think since it is a Sarah, they're going to want to try to do a lot of things in 1 turn with their discounted cards. And I mean, look at that Sarah. That's such a cool variant. They're going to want to do a lot of things in 1 turn, or a lot of actions in 1 turn. So I think the better play, or the best play here, is going to be sending our Electro their way, and it gives us the additional energy, which may or may not come into play, but it does give us a lot of insight into how we should play this upcoming turn. So they draw into Lockjaw with their Jubilee, which then flips into Nakia, which is just complete and utter madness and chaos. Just a very crazy turn. We can do, what can we do here? Or what do we want to do? We can do something like a Crossbones here, but that becomes difficult. I think the safer play is going to be doing Crossbones into Wakanda and then letting this become a little bit larger, because they're only able to drop 1 card. So it would feel really bad if they dropped a pretty large resource and it flipped into something small. So we would drop our large resource here, and then let's say they dropped a 10 power card. We're going to be 16. We would be one over them, unless their Sunspot could buff up, but then that becomes a little difficult as well. So it finally feels like we figured out a way to make this kind of cheeky combo work, because we went from winning one every few games when we first drafted this card to winning a few in a row, but then dropping a few, to now after this our latest update where we added in Psylocke, we are now winning. We now just won 5 in a row. Ever since we made that change or that update, we have won each and every game. I think the Psylocke gives us so much more flexibility. The issue we were running into was when we drew into our combo, it was great. But if we didn't draw into that combo, it felt like a dead draw, like a dead game. It was really hard to come up over and win. So now with Psylocke, we have a couple of ways to, one, ramp into a turn 4 Professor X, or ramp into a turn 4 Electro Viper combo, where we don't have the downside of only being able to drop one card for any turn at all. Okay, so our first location is the hub. We get Ant-Man out of it, which is not great. We probably won't get a lot of use out of him. But more importantly, in our starting hand, we do have Electro, and we draw into Professor X. So we're going to be able to at least attempt to lock down a lane here. And if we can sneak into locking down a Baxter building, that would be even better. But I think more than likely we'll have to go with locking down something like the hub or this unknown location over here. So I'm going to drop both of our 1-cost cards into that unknown location, one of which being Sunspot, which can grow and build up over time. And so our last location is Sokovia, so we are discarding our Professor X here, which is unfortunate that's the card that we end up discarding. I think we still go with playing our Electro here. We will follow it up with Viper because we don't have any other good 5 power cards targets. Oh no, so they dropped a debris on us. So now this becomes a 50-50 coin flip, which is not as consistent as a 100% if you didn't know. So let's go ahead and roll the dice. We have 50%. What was that? So they dropped a second debris, so that means they got their first debris from the hub. The second one they had in their deck, running a disruptive type deck. So what do we do here? We have a couple of options. We could drop the hood here, forego winning this lane. Actually, no, next turn that would allow us to only drop 1 card. So we can drop Onslaught here. That would tentatively give us the lead here. Depending on where they play, we could either let our Sunspot buff up next turn with our 7 mana, 7 energy, or if... This is awful. This is just awful. I feel like this is not the play line. So let's say they drop just about anything. They got very, very fortunate that they got debris from the hub. So let's say they drop, so this is going to become 5, so it's going to be 9 power. There's going to be 10, 11, 12 power here, while they currently have 3. We have a shot, but they most likely have like a Spider-Woman or something to that effect. And so I think we just play and let it play out, depending on what kind of disruption they have. I don't think a Spider-Woman would actually be enough. They would need 2 big resources here. And so maybe we have a shot. It just feels bad overall. Swinging Baxter Building is going to let us swing the game more than likely, because right now, winning Baxter Building would swing us either the hub or swing us Sokovia and the hub further in our favor. So it doesn't feel good. It's not a feel-good type of win, but... The problem that I have found, and I am an avid debris deck supporter. The problem I found with debris is that it's really hard to keep up with power output whenever you're dropping the debris disruption. So how do you overcome the power that your opponent placed on turn 3 and turn 4 on the following 2 turns? So it becomes pretty difficult. So very, very luckily we were able to swing that one. Just an absolute mess of a game. All right, so we have our Viper, we have our Professor X in our hand. So we have some good tools that we want to be able to ramp into. We just don't have the tools to ramp just yet. And so we have to see, if we don't draw into those ramp tools, we have to see if we're able to pull this game out anyways. So when you play a card here, add a copy to another location. So we could do Electro, and that gives us some flexibility. We know we're going to be able to send one of the Electros their way, probably only one. And then if that will limit them to 1 card per turn. And so even though it's double Nakia buffed, I think we would be able to potentially compete. And then even if we just send them the 1 here, I think it becomes okay, because then we can still drop our Iron Man, which would duplicate. We could drop an Onslaught, a Chavez, all of which duplicate across the board. So they do drop a Khazar here, which is a very big, very large Khazar. But we send them Electro. Can we send them the second one? No. Unfortunately, we don't get lucky and send them the second one. So now, we still can only play 1 card, but so can they. Do we gamble here? They can only drop 1 card. Do they have something that's going to be over 5 power? Do we waste this turn? I don't think we do. I think we play our Iron Man here. That's going to give us some random chance in where it goes. We can then drop our Chavez here, which is going to let us win this lane. And then we just have to hope that the RNG is good. Ooh, so we would have been able to lock down the Danger Room. That's unfortunate that, so hopefully our Iron Man goes over here. It doesn't. And so we would have been able to lock down this lane, but then we wouldn't have had a play line to finish this one off. So they can drop 1 card. They can drop a Chavez, or a 1 drop card. I think we win this one regardless of where this goes. No, because 10 would be 20, so it'd be 26. Guys, we need the coin flip here. We need the coin flip to push our Chavez here for the win. Maybe we can scare him off. I don't think they're buying it. All right, coin flip it is. You know we don't like coming down to the casino, but here we are. Buy your lottery tickets. So we play our Chavez. They play just a card into the Gila. So that's not going to be... Is that going to be enough in Danger Room to win it to him? It feels good to win the lottery. S2, I'm so sorry for what we have done to you. I'm so sorry. They definitely had the better play in the double Nakia, the double Khazar, just made their whole entire board intimidating. The Electro slowed them down quite a bit. They were almost able to pull it out with the Iron Man, but we just got the lucky coin flips a couple of different times. With that win, I am going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. This one took a lot longer to find a working or functional deck list than a normal deck. Usually I can draft one. It's pretty decent off the bat. This one, it took about 4 iterations. We ended up spending probably 30 games or more in different testing and experimentation and teching different cards until we came upon this list. This one gives us the most flexibility to either ramp up and limit them with our Electro, ramp up and drop a Professor X, ramp up and then be able to do our Iron Man, our Onslaught kind of combo. It gives us that flexibility. And so this one definitely feels like it gives us the most strategic advantage, at least of the ones that we tested out. And so with that, I am going to go ahead and end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I appreciate all of you guys for all of your continued support, coming back to the videos time and time again. I can't express how much that means. So I hope you enjoyed the video. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.